Hello again, Andrew Ellen Martin Purdy with you. Now, as far as 90%, 95% of the things I showcase are going to be of the negative persuasion. They are going to be exposing evils, and I would like you to understand that the only way that I can see fit in processing any of these images, the Obama and the rest of it, the only way I can really cope with doing it is to expose. This episode is going to start off with me going through the good things. Now, out of all the things that I studied and took in, there along the way there were the good things that dropped into my line of sight, and they should be addressed. They came here and there randomly. These things, when the whole world is stacked against you, as ours is, it's easy. It is really easy to ignore the amazing things that that are all around us. I'd like to start out by talking about something that I looked into: sound frequency tests, and they were showing that at these very high decibel levels was able to mold sand into shapes, and that this was something that our ancestors had picked up on, and there were, the natives, the Native Americans would do sand paintings. The shape that these sound waves seemed to create at their highest, it was a recognizable shape. It was a very certain shape. And meditating on all of this, something that I processed was that sound means more than we realize. And the Bible, what it says on this, and I thought, well, when the Bible says that in the beginning there was the Word, and then when you hear scientists describe the Big Bang Theory, I thought, well, the word that God first spoke to create the universe, what the Hindus had reflected with a symbol known as Om. When you see them doing their chanting, their humming, what they are trying to emulate is the sound that created the universe. And at the other end of the spectrum, they believe that God will reverse this sound and it will undo the universe. There was another study done where they simply put the words love and hate on jars, and the plant growth was put in both jars, and the plants in the love jar flourished, while the ones in the hate jar perished. Along the way, I went into a sublet where I learned about aural or phantom limb photography. People that have lost limbs, they take pictures of the stump, and then you can see the outline of their arm that they once had. They say that they can feel this. My first reaction to that was, well, then yes, then that means that there is some kind of pattern that we have in our make. The hand is more than just a hand. It is your spirit has hands, and that was something that I found myself thinking about a lot. It was reflected by what I learned about atoms. Scientists of recent they've made a big deal out of how the atom structure is so unbelievably large in scope, how it works, and what an atom actually represents. It's mind-blowing. And scientists have, many droves of scientists have come out and said that they believe that, yes, there had to have been mind before matter, and you can see this in the atoms themselves, how their makeup. I found all this to be supportive along the way. Now, I mean, I bounced off of this. I was still an atheist when I learned these things. Somehow I could overlook it. Somehow I could look past it and still see the grim. And I like I said, 90% of what I'm going to be giving you is grim, but grim in nature. But there is an end all that I want to share with you, and it's not at all grim. In the same vein, I learned of the Fibonacci spiral, the Fibonacci sequence. An amazing construct. It is its structure can be found in everything. It can be found everywhere. And when I first saw it and I saw what it represented, I was like, well then, it looked like a fingerprint in my mind. When I saw it, I was like, well, could that be God's fingerprint? I do believe now that is basically what you're seeing when you see this golden ratio, this number that is so prevalent throughout. The Fibonacci sequence, when I looked into it and dug into it, I at the same time on my own, it's not like I did any study on this, but this was something that I meditated on, and I thought, well, smoke in itself, the vapors of something burning, the spirals that we see appear in smoke. I started thinking, it wouldn't do that unless there was something there to make that show. There must be spirals in the air itself then, and that's what I think we're seeing in smoke. The Fibonacci sequence, though, it does too have a link into sound waves. That's the way we've always represented sound waves, was a spiral. This shape goes into the idea of hypnotizing someone. The spiral shape that can be found in the ear, and it can be found in seashells and everything. I think there's a lot to it. In my research, know that the Fibonacci sequence itself, it came in at a second tier, because for years I had studied the creation of the pyramids, and I learned in all the digging that I did, I learned about a man named Edward Leedskalnin, and he built this place called Coral Castle. These kids claimed that they had witnessed him lifting these huge stones with nothing but cones in his hands. And when you look into these cones, you see that there are cone artifacts in Egypt and Africa. These cones had something to do with the spirals in the air. It helped them focus energy that we can't comprehend or control into building the pyramids. And I honestly do. I think that Nephilim helped in that process. I think Nephilim were real. The so-called giants of the Bible. I've seen too much on how the Historical Society of America has put a cover up on the giants that have been discovered. And I think it was a cross between the giants and this unseen spiral mechanism that created the pyramids. I do recommend looking into Edward Lee Skowron and the Coral Castle. It is a mind trip all by itself. It's something that we know about that they don't want us to know about. We don't have the answers for it. We do have a glimpse of the truth. There are glimpses that we get. The human eye in itself is this, it is an amazing aspect. It is an amazing mechanism. I see in my research that there's this, the all-seeing eye, that the Illuminati, they pounce on it, they push it, and I really think it boils down to the eye is the window to the soul. This idea that God can always see what you're doing, they want that so badly. They do. That's what this the eye motif is all for. And I learned about how complex the eye was, not just the human eye, but all creatures' eyes. And lest we not forget the third eye, the pineal gland. When I learned about the pineal gland and the lens that animals have that we do not possess, how they might be able to see structures that we can't fathom. Our third eye is gunked up by fluoride, and it's dirtied. It explains a lot. It really does. But these windows to the soul, Darwin himself, Mr. Evolution himself. Let me tell you something about Darwin real quick. I'm just going to throw it in there. He was a sycophant that had some real issues. He tried to create a sort of a master race by sleeping with cousins, close family members. The guy, he was a mess, and his ideas were a mess. And you know what's sad? They weren't even his ideas. They were his grandfather's. He just took the writings of the prior Darwin and slapped his name on it. I no longer believe in evolution. I think it is there's far too much. There's just far too much that works against it. The reason why we have an understanding of dinosaurs and even dragons is that there was this time that we have this very, very foggy memory of. It's a subdued, subconscious thing, and it's there from our ancestors that needed to worry about such things. And I'm talking way back. I'm talking, who knows how far back. The way I look at it is Adam and Eve might have seen dinosaurs, and the behemoth of the Bible that God cherished, that God was so excited over. I mean, come on. You have to understand it. He was excited over his herbivore dinosaurs. And when you look into the Nephilim stuff, you find out that the way I see it is Lucifer corrupted all flesh. That means all flesh. That means that even the dinosaurs were corrupted at that tender point. And so I'm thinking that when you see a T-Rex or a Velociraptor, you're seeing the product of Lucifer. And then when you see the Apatosaurus, or let's say the Ankylosaurus or Triceratops, when you see them, it's the work of God. And when you start seeing things like that, when you start like seeing how all of this could have been, what God said He did, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, you can find all kinds of answers. What Mr. Darwin said about eyes, it being the atheist, being the liberal thinking man, what he said about eyes hit me. Finding out about Darwin's history hit me. The way I look at it is, it doesn't bother me that I share DNA with apes. There is a definite share between us. There is a correlation, but the correlation that I see now is that we were designed by the same designer, and that's when you see perhaps apes came after us. Maybe they were a byproduct of us. I've thought that. That's something that I have just begun to trek in my mind. It's in the feet. Apes, their feet, they don't make very good runners, and it is strange that they would be defunct that way. And so I'm wondering if they aren't a product from us. Maybe there's more truth to Lucy than one might see at first glance. Perhaps Lucy herself is a product of Lucifer's doing. My take on the dinosaurs now is that when you look into what the Bible says about the firmament above the heavens, it describes a raised ocean in the ether. And I saw, in my mind, I was thinking, well, Noah's Ark, if you take it seriously, if you take the idea of Noah's Ark very seriously, you'll understand that I don't think we're not getting half the story. We're not getting all of it. This ark had to have been something a lot more grand than what we, I think, imagined. There had to have been a way to separate these animals, feed them, take care of them. If God had been able to open an avenue with Noah to an extent where basically he'd say something to the tune of, take DNA, don't worry about the animals themselves, just take the DNA. I'm wondering if that's not what happened, and we're getting a version of it. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I believe that would solve a lot of the problems. But at the same time, I wonder if that's not why the dinosaurs are extinct. Out of all the animals, they would have had a hard time getting loaded to a boat, a gigantic boat. It would have been far too difficult to do that. And I'm wondering if this firmament above the heavens breaking and flooding the world and giving it all the water that we know today, and killed, that was the extinction of the dinosaurs. The deluge in itself is so... Every culture has a deluge legend. They all have their own version of Noah. How do you explain this? Somebody answered me back once in a conversation about this, and they said that, every river flooded, and every nation has rivers. And I can't take that seriously. That is not an answer. A deluge look into what that means, and look into the fact that every culture on the planet has an account for this. I believe that we see evidence of the deluge everywhere. The damage on the sides of the Sphinx is water damage. It is not time erosion or anything else. The Sphinx is older than people. It's like they can't grasp the fact that it once had a lion head. It once had a lion's head. When looking at the Sphinx, you can tell, just by glance alone. You don't even have to have specialized artistic training to understand that it's two different materials. The head is made out of a different material, and the bottom is actually carved from the earth itself, and it's the erosion on it, the erosion that it shows, that is water damage, and a lot of it. I believe that you can see, looking over, say, the Grand Canyon, there are plenty of areas in just on U.S. maps alone that show that it was water. This was water that created these shapes. It was nothing else. I see that the Bible, I didn't know that the Bible talked about rainbows. I didn't know that the rainbow was like a sign between God, a confidence between God and man, that there would never be another deluge. I didn't know that going into my studies. I found that out much later, after I had decided that I believed in God and Christ and the Bible. I found out about it later. Looking back, to my old thoughts, I never had an answer for rainbows. I never even gave it any thought, But when you really look at a rainbow, you understand that that's not there. It serves no purpose in nature to be a one certain shape, and it has this beauty to it that it's a sign of the end of rain. And when growing up, I learned that rainbows were it was the prism effect of water particles and the like. And but as I've gotten to be older now, I don't see them that way. I see that they are it's a thought, it's an emotion, it's an idea. It's not just an effect. It's just look at a rainbow sometime and really look at what it means. Why are there so many colors in it? Why is it a band? In recent times, I'm just going to throw this in there too, that I'm wondering if the deluge didn't inspire us to wash things, wash our hands, wash our clothes. I'm wondering if this didn't come directly from God's effect on our psychology. Perhaps it was something that was set into us just based on the concept that water cleanses. Once upon a time, there was a me who passed joints with other atheist buddies, and I brought up how cannabis in itself, isn't it proof that there's a God? It is a plant that look into what Cat Williams said about this. He said it in a much funnier way, but he's right. something that you set on fire, and it creates a good, warm, awesome feeling inside you. And for me, it allows me to focus, and it pulls me into this zone that things get clear for me. I use it as a tool. It is not, I don't misuse cannabis. This thing that exists, this THC, the higher calling, THC that exists in these plants, it once it's vaporized, once it's inhaled, it does all this to you, and it comes out of a natural thing. And that was my argument, was that alone should tell you that someone designed this. There's no purpose for that in nature. If the forest burns down and the pot plant that's in the forest is burned, what, a few birds are going to get the benefits? No. It's absurd to think that nature created that, like that was just a natural thing. And I do believe that there's a lot goes into this as far as where the government fights cannabis. It is a gift from God. All the herbs in the field are for you, for us. This is something that comes from nature. My ancestors, the Native Americans, and all across the world. What I said, every culture has something about the deluge. Every culture also has something about the use of cannabis. It can be found way back in history. We're talking thousands and thousands of years. China, India, just everywhere. They use cannabis as a spiritual counterpart. They don't rely on it. And that's something that I think non-smokers, partakers, I think they don't understand. That is that it's not something you rely on. It's something that it's a help. Cuts through all the fog that is our society, in my eyes. But I had times where I would take a hit and tell my buddies that I really thought that cannabis was proof that there was a God. That's how I looked at it. And now I see it even more now. It's even more brilliant now to me. And now I understand why it's illegal. It's illegal for no apparent reason. The cigarettes that I am an addict to, the cigarettes that I smoke, they poisonous. They're legal, but cannabis, with all its benefits and with all its good feeling, is against the law. It makes no sense. One needs to look into William Randolph Hearst to understand why, the why it's illegal in the first place. Look into what Nixon did to cannabis. And Nixon didn't like the fact that these scientists told him that cannabis was good. And so he got very angry and murdered a bunch of monkeys to make cannabis look bad. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but look into it. This is what happened. And I believe that, yes, cannabis it's something straight from God's handiworks, and that's why it is bashed and rolled over in the wrong way. That's why it's attacked, and that's why it's illegal. It makes no sense for it to be illegal. None whatsoever. Another odd, random, I guess sweet argument that I brought up with my friends was the softness of my pets. I'm a cat guy to the end. Love them, love the cats. I have den fathered many a litter in the last few years, and it's an amazing thing to. I mean, I took these things out of their sacks and helped them in their first nursing, and they recognize me, they know me, they love me, and I love them back. And that's something you really need to look into, is the love that we have with our pets. It has a lot to do with how God gave all the animals to Adam. It's the same thing. When we name our pets, it's that same feeling. It's incredible what I feel now and what I know now. But my argument was that why are these animals soft? Why are they enjoyable to hold, and you know, you get all lovey with them, and then they start purring and they smurgle you. That's what it's called, smurgling, where they push their paws into you, and they remember their mother's teat, and so they like push against you in that same emotion, that same thing, that nurturing that they were seeking from their mother, they're getting from you holding them. And they start purring, and that was what I said. I was like, it doesn't make any sense. This is not natural. This, you know, it serves no purpose for their fur to be pleasant to us, except to give us joy, unless it's a gift from God directly. I found out later on, going through things, that bears also purr and smurgle. So I mean, even the tough ones do this stuff. I myself learned just as much by taking in a little bit of THC, TLC, smoking a little bit of cannabis, and visiting my den-fathered kittens. I learned a lot about how they looked up to me, not only because of my greater size than them, but that they did trust me, and that for what they're defenseless in this world that has been manipulated and turned inside out by mankind, and they don't know anything about it. And I don't think people put enough thought into that. These little animals that depend on me, and depend on me not to be abusive, because they are defenseless compared to me. They react to love, and the love that you share with your little ones, your animals, it is a unconditional bond. There is no ulterior motives in it. The love that you share with them, this must be the way our Creator, this must be the way God looks at us. We are we're nowhere near His distinction. We are one of His creations. We are a awesome creation. We didn't create our pets. Our pets were created for us. But as God looks down to us, He sees how defenseless we are. He sees how vulnerable we are to the need of love and to the fight against hate and violence and sorrow. But at the same time, he expects a lot from us, because that's how we've always carried ourselves as important. We've always attempted to build our own way of things. And so, as Adam and Eve took of the forbidden fruit, I can see that what was set forth was not curses. Things like the deluge in itself, it was not God's fault that something like the deluge was necessary. I've come to a level where I don't blame our Creator for those choices, and I can see in retrospect how God has acknowledged our rise and our steps towards bettering what the human race can be. And so I find confidence, and I do find faith, and I do trust God now. That's I never thought that I'd be able to say any of this. I am being forthright and honest in my all when I do say it. As I segue into the bad from the good, I'm going to cushion the descent by bringing up lightning, of all things. I've noticed a trend of lightning appearing in news stories and the like here in Ohio, USA. We had a statue of it was a statue of Jesus that was struck by lightning and all but melted away. I remember when it happened, everyone spoke about how it was poetic justice, that the sermoner, the preacher of the church where this statue had been hit, he was a hypocrite, and he was doing a lot of naughty, awful things without remorse and to no end. I overlooked it, looked past it. Coincidence is what I thought. But I've noticed that lightning, if you pay attention, lightning shows it pops in, and we've had a statue of Christ in Rio that lightning did a whole little light show around, struck the fingertips of this Christ statue, struck the fingertips. And in these videos, I've tried to relay stuff about lightning in general, like where I'd seen it come in. In beginning studying the Illuminati, one of the first things you really run into is an account of a man named Lance. It's Lance with a Z. And this guy was he was a courier riding a horse, and he was the last vestige of protection on documents and doctrines of the Illuminati. This was in 1785, and the Bavarian government had tracked down and decimated the Illuminati, and this messenger, Lanz, he was struck by lightning. He was hit and killed by a bolt from the sky. I'm not sure what most people think of that, but I know what I think of that. That was God. In this presentation, you will see a clip about lightning, and I want you to recall back to the first episode where lightning had struck the Freedom Tower the day that the Pope had entered Jerusalem. Understand that the Barack Obama bit where that's how Christ would have spoken the words describing the Antichrist coming to earth like lightning. This is all a sign. I am in full to the core belief that God has used lightning as a means to subtly inform. When you look at lightning's power, its amplitude, and how it's striking these pinpoint objects, I think you'll start to see why I've come to this conclusion. I've barely briefly touched on the Vatican in episode 2. I'd like to preface the following materials with just a general rundown of more Vatican facts and notations. As of late, our most recent Pope, he has made some astounding, strange reversals on deep, old doctrines. Even when I was still in my atheist mindset, I found that to be strange, that, all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Pope would start making these announcements, such as that it's not about creating a personal relationship with Christ, that is, according to him, it's impossible and dangerous, is what he's alluding to. And that goes against everything that Christ said personally. All of the rituals and things that the Catholic religion do in order to abide and worship, from confession to the rosary beads to everything, it all contradicts Jesus's words. He spoke against all of these things. Confession to another person, it's therapeutic, and it's helpful. It's not a bad idea, but there is a far more important way of confessing, and that is to Christ himself, and to ask for the forgiveness that has already been put up for acceptance. The reversal on evolution really did. It bugged me. Even as an atheist, I didn't understand how that worked. How could they just totally turn the other way on that? And then I found it really interesting that they started coming out with things about alien life, talking about E.T., how E.T. could be baptized, and how they could be our space brothers. And, well, I'm going to go into this stuff further after the featured bits and pieces. Why is it that the U.S. Capitol is Roman-esque? It has its Senate. We We dote on the symbol of the eagle as they did in Roman times, and American, Vatican. This connection. Why is it important to speak about the miles and miles of books and scrolls that are kept in finely tuned, cool library settings underneath the Vatican, and somewhere above, below, adjacent to that, they have every pagan, every demonology homage you can think of, every why is it that the popes have this thing with a fish hat, and then you find out that comes from Dagon, the fish deity, which ties into even as far left of field as the Necronomicon. Why is it that everything seems to point out that there is something dark and foreboding there? It's because there is. And why is it that throughout our civilization we find tons and tons of evidence of this evil methodology and ideology? It's because it is something very real. God described our world. This is something that I learned in my research. He described it to a T. He described this anti-Christ system that we exist and persist within. We come to a point in this series where I will be focusing more on what I'm about to speak on. But I learned that the Bible says a few things that are rather important. One is that God will send us great delusion. He will make sure that it's hard for us to see through this fog. He tests you. He wants to bring out the strengths in you. He wants you to find your own clarity. That he commanded upon Lucifer, our enemy in the shadows, that he may not attack us on a blind side. He couldn't just blindside us. He had to incorporate the truth of the coming attack, of the coming horrors. He had to somehow warn us, even if it was askew, even if it was off kilter in the way that the message was transmitted and received. God commanded that at least that would be done, that there would be some sign to us. I found that I staggered at that. The Vatican, for all its supposed holiness, I take this in contrast to God's own words, and I see that the Vatican is it's an earthly construct, and God said that nothing of this world, earth, is of him. Totally separate from him. And he didn't say that for no apparent reason. He wanted you to know that everything exists separate from him, and that things here can be corrupted very easily and thoroughly. One of the most supposed holiest advents of the human race, the papacy, they helped the Nazis. They were the ones who harbingered these war criminals into Project Paperclip. It was the Vatican that did that. And it's the Vatican that hides 7 secrets, is what they call them, from all of us. Well, they don't hide. They only hide the last 2. They won't go in on what those last 2 secrets are that they have. And I really believe that what those last 2 truths are about, they point out the deception that the papacy even fell for in this grand deception. When you look at the words grand deception, the word grand, it's not enough.
If the last 600 years have taught us anything, it is that popes don't quit. There is no League of Retired Pontiffs, no Holy Father rest home. It is a job for life, or at least it was, until this morning, when over 1 billion Catholics did a collective double-take at the news that Benedict XVI had just given his 2 weeks' notice in Latin. So why now? What does it mean for the Church, and who could possibly replace him? Here's my co-anchor, Terry Moran.
It seemed an ordinary rainy Monday in the Vatican, except maybe for that lightning bolt striking St. Peter's.
Dominus vobiscum.
Pope Benedict XVI gathered a group of cardinals for a small ceremony, the canonization of 3 saints. His bombshell came at the end.
In gravescente aetate.
He spoke in Latin, the ancient language of the Church. I have come to the certainty, he said, that my strengths due to an advanced age are no longer suited to an adequate exercise of the papacy.
I'm surprised, I'm shocked.
Around the world, from ordinary parishioners to Vatican insiders, the reaction was the same.
Today's decision by Benedict XVI to resign from the papacy came as a huge surprise to me, and I think to everyone in Rome and also to everyone in the Vatican.
For almost 600 years, it hadn't happened. For almost 600 years, popes died in office. So with this one stroke, Benedict XVI changed history.
No one alive has ever seen anything like that happen. And the dynamics of that, I think, are completely unknown.
Been talked about as an act of God. The Vatican, struck by lightning on the same day Pope Benedict XVI shocked his cardinals by announcing his resignation. The frequently stumbling pontiff has long stayed off rumours of deteriorating health. In this instance, he's caught napping during a moment of sanctity while visiting the flock in Malta. Benedict began his reign as Catholicism's mitre-wielding man of cloth in his late 70s. He endured a broken wrist and a very public attack, giving rise to concerns that he may become vulnerable after suffering a stroke. Just recently, and perhaps another sign from God, the pontiff's dove of peace found itself flying solo against a wall. The symbol of harmony and purity was then set upon by a vengeful seagull, leaving the faithful questioning the mind of God. Perhaps the reign of Benedict is ending not because of his age or health, but because he simply didn't have the cool factor of the Pope who went before him.
Some extraordinary pictures which came to us from the Vatican on what was, of course, an extraordinary day. Within hours of Pope Benedict announcing that he was to resign, take a look at this. Lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica. You can see it again now in slow motion. Extraordinary. It happened just before 6 o'clock in the evening, local time.
Eius Lucifer matutinus inveniat, ille Lucifer, qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Malevolence which would pursue us here has lost its power under these friendly trees. So shall we burn thee once again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free.
You shall burn me once again! Not with these flames, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
The Bohemian Club, as you say, the Bohemian Club? That's where all those rich Republicans go up and stand naked against redwood trees, right? I've never been to the Bohemian Club, but you ought to go. It'd be good for you. Get some fresh air.
I know you consider yourself a Catholic, but what happens when you worship Moloch at the Bohemian Grove? New York Post says that male prostitutes are shipped into the Bohemian Grove. Can you tell us what happens there?
You actually believe all this junk?
Bill Clinton said that Republicans run around naked in the woods there.
As you say, the Bohemian Club? That's where all those rich Republicans go up and stand naked against redwood trees, right? I've never been to the Bohemian Club, but you ought to go. It'd be good for you. Get some fresh air.
And you don't want to know what Richard Nixon said about the place.
The Bohemian Grove that I attend, one time at a time, the Easterners and the others,
It is the most faggy goddamn thing you could ever imagine in San Francisco crowd because it's just terrible. I mean, I don't want to shake hands with anybody in San Francisco.
That's the place you attended. It's a secret society. Can you tell us at least who invited you?
You know, it's nice to know that there's some people who have fantasy lives that have nothing to touch with. Nice to have you here. Bye-bye.
You can't answer the question? You can't? Can you answer the question?
David Gergen, top presidential advisor to Ford, Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, and Bill Clinton. We couldn't believe our luck. We couldn't believe our luck. We couldn't believe our luck. It just so happens that David Gergen is also a prominent member of the Bohemian Grove, the offshoot of Skull and Bones. This insider of insiders, a staple of the White House for 22 years, got very upset when we brought up Bohemian Grove to him. He didn't deny its existence. He didn't deny that he was a member. He didn't deny the rituals. He just became angry and didn't act very gentlemanly.
The real wild card here are the demonstrators. We just don't know where this is going to go. While they were peaceful today, there's a lot more anger among those demonstrators than is evident. You talk to them today, they're pretty angry people. So that's the big wild card.
Hey, Mr. Gergen, can we talk to you for a second?
Where are you from?
I'm Alex Jones. I have a TV show in Austin. I make documentaries. Just a few questions about the convention.
Yeah, well, is there a camera, or are you?
Yeah, right there, just about. Yeah, but I just want to get your permission first. Here.
Okay, it's local. I've got.
No, I understand. Just about a minute or two.
Okay, great.
We're talking to David Gergen, and he has advised several presidents, and of course has written quite a few books, and is a, I would call you a political pundit or researcher.
Commentary at Over the Hill, whatever.
Okay. How long have you been in New York?
About 4 hours.
What do you think of this circus?
Well, I haven't seen all the protests yet, but I've never seen as much security for a convention as we have here. And it's, the city's almost closed down. I think it's remarkable. I think it's an unfortunate turn for politics that we have to have this many police around.
There's been a lot of news articles and reports saying that there's a heightened risk of terror attacks. Do you think do you think there's a chance of that? Or
I think, well, listen, they just arrested, I think, or broken up some plot allegedly to somebody wanted to blow up subways. Yeah, I think it's a very real danger. And you've got the Madison Square Garden is sitting right, basically on top of a train station, and Boston Convention was right on top of a train station. Yeah, I just have to remember that trains are very accessible, vulnerable, and that's what happened in Spain. They went after trains and they blew some trains up, and it wasn't very expensive. So I think there's that danger, but I think the police are on top of it. They're treating this as a special security event, which means there's not only the obvious police around, but believe me, there's a lot of private stuff going on here.
Okay, one last question. I read a Washington Times article many years ago where you had a comment about the organization, and then now it's been in the Wall Street Journal, it's been in a lot of different newspapers, and that's the Bohemian Grove. And back in, 1996, when you joined as a Clinton advisor, the Republicans were criticizing you, oh, what about Bohemian Grove? And then you countered them by saying, hey, I don't run around in the woods naked. What did that mean? Here is the before-mentioned Washington Times article where he said, I didn't run around naked like they do.
I don't know what quote you're referring to. I'm not aware of any quote like that. Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adjuration.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Really?
That's right.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open and got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
But it's a lot of big public officials going in there. Don't we deserve to know?
I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film. But if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Really?
I'm sorry, you took an understanding when you went in there that you would not do that film. And did you have an understanding when you went in there?
No.
Did you crash it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it has no trespassing signs there too, doesn't it?
No, they put them up after.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I've been there before. I know what the circumstances are, and I'm sorry you violated the understandings. That was not a gentlemanly thing to do.
But what about the ritual? Is the ritual gentlemanly?
Sir, everything. I don't owe you this comment.
I know. I appreciate it.
This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you
ever
and goodbye.
been in the ritual?
It's none of your damn business.
Oh.
That's right. Listen. You go around and make understandings with people and violate them. You ambush people on the streets, and that's an inappropriate form of journalism. If you wish to practice that, that's fine, but don't ask others to respect you for it. If you want to, you can do. You're a free American, like anything you want. If you want to be uncivil and rude and ungentlemanly, that's up to you. But don't expect the rest of us to say, "Oh well, you're
there, Mr. Gergen."
I'm sorry, nobody sets policy in there. We try to be gentlemen, and obviously, you don't belong there.
Weaving spiders come out here. Yeah, that is a three-pointer. Woo! Boy, I hit the hot button. Mr. Gergen, have a wonderful life. Say hi to Moloch for me, Canaanite deity, and I'll see you at Eyes Wide Shut, baby. Bye-bye. Get his face, get his face, get his face. Get his face, get in there and get his face. David Gergen. David Gergen says that we're angry?
The real wild card here are the demonstrators. We just don't know where this is going to go. While they were peaceful today, there's a lot more anger among those demonstrators than is evident. You talk to them today, they're pretty angry people. So that's the big wild card.
Thank you and goodbye.
Been in the ritual?
That's none of your damn business. It's none of your damn business.
Oh.
That's right. Listen.
Just look at him. That's a face keeping a lot of secrets. He's got some stories to tell. And remember that Washington Times article? It talked about all the other organizations that he resigned from. It mentions the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, all of them groups dedicated to setting up a world government and destroying American sovereignty.
Yes, sir. First question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You gave a keynote speech at the Bohemian Grove Club, sir, a club which openly has mock child sacrifices and satanic worship, sir. Can you answer my question, sir, please?
I was very pleased. I was very pleased with my performance in the debate. It was a good debate.
What about the Bohemian Grove Club, though, sir? That's very important. They do mock human sacrifices there, sir, and you reported being there.
I was very pleased with my performance in the debate.
Sir, why did you ignore my question, sir? Can we have open dialogue? If you want to be president, let's have an open dialogue about this. You just ignored me, sir. It's not nice. It's not.
It's running up a storm about that Bohemian Grove over there. Human sacrifices and male prostitutes shipped in there yearly. I should like to know what goes on over there.
That's respectable stuff.
I know, isn't it? It's disgusting.
What you're doing is not respectable.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about what the governor does over there yearly at Bohemian Grove.
This is about the debate. This is not an open news conference.
Right. Well, with the governor, there's never an open news conference. He talks about AIDS and health care and the same stuff over and over.
Governor, Bohemian Grove, actually, you said before that did you or did you not attend Bohemian Grove in San Francisco? You've been ignoring this question for 3.5 years, Governor.
Maybe you've heard of the secret club called Skull and Bones at Yale University and the rumors that members stole the skull of Geronimo. Well, now descendants of the famous Indian warrior, they're suing to get it back. And as Deborah Fayrick reports, that is not all they want.
Geronimo hanged for murder.
Just his name, Geronimo, conjures up images like these in an American legend. A fierce Apache leader and his warriors, greatly outnumbered, fighting off the U.S. cavalry in an attempt to save his people and their way of life.
And he's eventually surrounded and outmanned, outgunned. He is convinced to surrender.
Geronimo died a prisoner of war, his body buried in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, 100 years later, his family is suing to get his remains back.
After a while, you know, it hurts you inside.
Harlan Geronimo is the warrior's great-grandson. He and other descendants are suing Yale University and the secret society known as the Order of Skull and Bones, claiming Geronimo's skull was stolen back in 1918 by Yale students, members of the secret order.
One of the alleged grave robbers, Yaley Prescott Bush, the father and grandfather of Presidents 41 and 43.
When you desecrate a grave like of this nature, you know, you upset the spirits. And sooner or later, you know, the spirits will come after you.
For decades, members called bonesmen dismissed the suggestion as a hoax. But a bonesman's letter written in 1918, discovered 2 years ago at Yale, suggests otherwise. Quote, the skull of the worthy Geronimo the Terrible exhumed. Now, safe inside, the T. T is believed short for the tomb, the bonesman's private club.
I spoke with several bonesmen who told me that inside the tomb there's a glass display case containing a skull, and the bonesmen have always called it Geronimo.
Author Alexandra Robbins wrote a book on the secret order.
If it is found that Geronimo's skull is really in there, that's a crime.
Geronimo's descendants have also sued President Obama and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, hoping to recover Geronimo's remains at Fort Sill.
He died as a prisoner of war. Still, he was not free, and he was not free to be buried in the old customary ways that the Apache would have been buried at that time.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Did y'all hear what he asked John Kerry to get himself tasered? Did you hear the question? You didn't hear the question? He was like, is it not true, Senator Kerry, that you are a member of Skull and Crossbones, a secret society with George Bush? And Kerry was like, that's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that question.
And to continue to pile name upon some wall in the future for a strategy that has failed. That's the distinction. Sir.
I first and foremost want to thank you for your time. You spent a lot of time talking to those here. I want to thank you for coming and being open and honest. You recommended a book to us earlier. I wanted to recommend a book to you. It's called Art Madhouse by Greg Palast.
Yeah, I have it, actually.
Yeah, he's the top investigative journalist in America.
I've already read it.
And he says you won the 2004 election.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? You won in 2004. In fact, there were multiple reports on the day of the election of disenfranchisement of black voters in Florida and Ohio. I'll ask my question. Thank you very much. I'll ask my question. I'm going to preface it. He's been talking for 2 hours. I think I can have 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to ask you my question. I'm going to inform people, and then I'm going to ask you my question. So there are multiple reports of disenfranchisement of black voters on the day of the election in 2004.
Right.
There was also voting machines, electronic voting machines in Volusia County, Florida, that counted backwards. So amidst all these reports of phony stuff going on, how could you concede the election on the day? How could you concede the 2004 election on the day? When in this book, it says there were 5 million votes that were suppressed, but you won the election. Didn't you want to be president? I'm not even done yet. I have 2 more questions. If you were so against Iran, how come you're not saying, let's impeach Bush now? Impeach Bush now before you can invade Iran. Why don't we impeach him? Impeach Bush. Clinton was impeached for what? A blowjob? Why don't we impeach Bush? All right? Also, were you a member of Skull and Bones from college and Bush? Were you in the same secret society as Bush? Were you in Skull and Bones? Thank you for cutting my mic. Thank you. Are you going to arrest me? Excuse me. Excuse me. What are you arresting me for? Whoa. Is anybody watching this? I'm not doing this. I want you to get off me. Get off me. Get off me. Hey. What are you doing? What are you doing? What is going on here? What is going on here? I want to stand and listen to you answer my question. Why are you arresting me for asking me? Help! Are you kidding? They're arresting me. Help! I didn't do anything. Help me! They're arresting me.
He's got a taser on his chest. I mean, this really is ridiculous. He's an idiot.
I think you've ever had this situation.
You don't have an option.
I'll answer this question. And, Unfortunately, he's not available to come up here and swear me in as president.
Why are they arresting me? Did someone do something here?
Let me just
I'm
say
being arrested.
Because it's a very important question.
What did I do? Get off me. You know what? Get off me. Get the off me, man. I didn't do anything. Tase me, bro. Don't tase me. I didn't do anything. Ow! 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 Ow!
Come on, Papa.
During the 1930s and 1940s, the OTO Lodge in California was headed by a brilliant young rocket designer called Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons developed patented rocket technology, which is still in use by NASA to this day. NASA named a crater on the dark side of the moon in honor of Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons worked during the day to develop rocket propulsion systems which would serve NASA's space program, which was controlled by ex-Nazi SS officers such as Werner von Braun, who had been brought to the USA by the CIA's Project Paperclip. at night. Jack Parsons would hold sex magic rituals in his house in Pasadena and initiate fellow scientists at the Los Alamos Atomic Bomb Laboratory. Jack Parsons was fully aware of what his rocket designs would eventually be used for. Not far from Jack Parsons' rocket lab in Pasadena, Robert Oppenheimer was building the world's first atom bomb.
I feel the need to preface this next segment and have you call back to in episode 1, Wise in Darkness. What I'd like you to keep in mind is that I saw that there was this linear stream of ideas that ran back to JFK, and JFK in itself represented the felling of a king. They took away the headmast, and it was never given back. JFK was the last president that we had any choice in, any resolve in. After him, it was not about us anymore. It was about it. JFK, in his time, he brought out the space race, and the space race, when I took a careful look at it, and the moon landings, I could understand that the landings that they show us, they are clearly fake. They are clearly ridiculously fake. As a Adobe Photoshop artist, all I can say is that it only took me but moments of looking through the footage to see if it was fake before I realized that it was all faked. Things have been smudged out to such a high degree that you're barely getting anything from NASA. And NASA itself, I mean, people like to call it, never a straight answer. That's fine and dandy to call it, to make jokes about it. But the truth is that NASA in itself is fake. Its symbol is a clear anagram for Satan, and Satan is fake. Satan is a construct of Lucifer. Lucifer wants you to believe that there is this enemy that you're fighting. He wants you to believe that there is this entity that you can blame, but he casts that blame to Satan. And I will get into this, that I am trying my best to tie everything together from the first episode up till now. It has, believe it or not, even if it hasn't seemed so, it has been a running thought. I want you to recall back to what I said about the Bavarian government hunting down the Illuminati. See that Order 66 in Star Wars, that was paying homage to that. In Hollywood, what they do, Hollywood, what they do is they pay homage to the Illuminati, the 13 bloodlines that are represented by the bricks in the unfinished pyramid, the lines of bricks in the unfinished pyramid. The reason why this pyramid is unfinished is because it doesn't have its chief cornerstone. The pinnacle, the apex of the pyramid is it's not it's not in touch. It's outside the scope. And these illuminated, they feel that by grasping that very top without the chief cornerstone, that is their goal. That when you see the all-seeing eye, the pyramid on the dollar bill, when you see it, what you're seeing is the mentality. They believe that by taking Christ out of this, that it empowers them. And it's all based on a lie. The lie, when you really put thought into the original lie spoken by the serpent to Adam and Eve, you find it's a platform for evolution. Evolution came directly from it. You will be as God. You are not finished. You can build upon yourself, and God doesn't have anything to do with it, or he doesn't have to. That's the lie. So when you're looking at the dollar bill and you see the all-seeing eye, you're seeing that, a depiction of that lie that the serpent spoke. It's a hunger for power without the backing of our Creator. An outward defiance. The logic is pretty cemented. You see, the original serpent's lie that slithered into our psychology, if you look at it as overall marking on humanity, and that's how I look at it, the original lie that flicked from the serpent's tongue, this lie, I see it as I see that something genetic took place, something real and tangible took place. The human race was marked. This is where the whole reptilian brain fits in. And this reptilian brain is triggered and poked and prodded by society, and everything that it vomits forth is to be fuel for that reptilian brain. Everything that we detect, everything that we see paid homage to, it is somewhere real. Everything that you see the elite do, everything that you see those that you've trusted to quote unquote entertain you, they are all supporting something that lies behind a veil, and it lies before it too. It lies on both sides of it. But more importantly, there is something that we don't see. There is a hidden, ugly truth. When I learned that in the Bible, God speaks about this difference between our realm and their realm, and how he's going to take away what lies between the two. I started seeing the logic of this. And in something like The Matrix, they've tried to tell you, Hollywood, Lucifer's stars, named after his own, light bearer shtick, Hollywood, the wood that druidic priests with pagan occultic practices, they would use the wood from the holly tree for spells of sleep. It was specific. It had to do with sleeping. What the news calls real and what the movies say is unreal, I started realizing that it was flipped. It was all flipped. And these are elite and all of them. All of those that are still yet underneath the 13 brick line. Don't think that these people that we see they're all puppets. Even Obama, the true enemies of mankind, the enemies of God, we don't see them. Even if there are human counterparts, those human counterparts, they have a degree of money and resources to the point where they don't have to intermingle with us at all, at any level. They've never watched any of our movies. They've never, they have nothing to do with us. They know what all the movies and all the news is. It's complete. It's all fake. It's all fabrication, interwoven atop of fabrication. And when you look at this logic where they flip everything that they can, I started looking at movies and wondering if, well, what if everything in movies is real or was real? And I'm not talking about movies in particular, like, I don't know, Transformers. That didn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But this speak of living machinery, is that something that the true powers that be understand, and they just pass on this very little flake of the truth because God commanded it? God commanded that we were told in some fashion. I really honestly believe this is what's happening. These movies, that's all they are. They're obedience to God. They're self-tattletaling. It's all about tattletaling. It's all about self-tattletale. It's all about showing your soft underbelly without provoking an attack on it. There was a man named Nicholas Tesla. There was another man named Royal Rife. And there is an element that was discovered that is far greater than uranium. They call it thorium, named after the Norse god Thor. These three things that you can always do research on any of the three. Why are they not a part of our world when they make perfect sense? Why are they not? Why was this taken from us? Why did Tesla die alone, thought of as crazy? Why did Royal Rife, why did he and his machine, why were they erased? And thorium, why doesn't the news just cram thorium into our faces? Because these things present a human being that is capable of astounding feats. It's almost as if some of the things that we see in the movies, they would be real if it were, if it weren't for the taking away of these things I'm talking about. We would have a reality that would be glorious. This is why they were taken away. CERN. And if you look at the logo, you'll see that the logo is a 666. It's everywhere. Just start looking. It's everywhere. CERN, who gave us the internet with www.5555666. CERN, who was searching for the God particle. I remember, this is crazy. They're saying that they could do real damage to the Earth. They're saying that they could kill us all. They have no idea. It was a clear. Now, see, that, when I say everything, you can't trust anything that they tell you. Sometimes they say something. I don't know whether or not the people that are in charge of CERN, the higher echelon even above them, I don't know if they know that CERN is dangerous or not. I do know that they're lying about its purpose. They're putting up a statue of this Shiva goddess. That was them telling you the truth. That was them saying, this is what this is for. What backtracking you might find me say is something about angelic wormholes. Well, this is what I was thinking of. The Nebuchadnezzar, there's a story where he sends his men into this area that has to do with sci-fi element, portal, alchemy, whatever. It's this thing, and the account ends with them saying, oh, well, there's now a fourth in there. He sent 3 in, and now there's a fourth. And who's the fourth, they ask, and Nebuchadnezzar asks. And it even goes as far as saying that they put on special garments, like, I guess, radioactive suits or something of that like. But this fourth entity, they say, well, it's one of the sons of God. And that's how it, I mean, that's what they give you. That's the gist of it. It was a portal. It was a Stargate. Whatever you want to call it. End bracket of a black hole, event, horizon, whatever you want to call it. And this is what CERN is. This, I had researched on things that NASA, again, spoke of, and it was how they had discovered that there is a type of a framework, almost a ribbon weaving of energy that can create momentary, instantaneous portals. My dad had told me about this man named Mitchell Hedges, that he discovered the crystal skull. Now, I don't know what to think of all that, but it said that he was, later on, after all the skull stuff, he walked into a field and disappeared. And it's like he knew that he was going to be able to do this. I put that with what NASA said, that there are these synapses of energy that can create stargates, is what they're saying. Portals. I put that and that with CERN. I believe CERN is a very precise technology that our ancestors had a more simplified version of, and they were lied to as well. They were told to use it for embetterment, for spiritual reasons. Today we're being lied and cajoled into doing it again. And when we open it, it's going to, there's the faces that are waiting on the other side of this. They're not going to be some kind of all-knowing alien being. They're not going to be some kind of perfect alien entity, empress, you know, with the aura. It's not going to be something wise and gentle. It's going to be something horrific. There are accounts when CERN first powered up, there were reports of quote-unquote demon sighting, spiritual halflings. They'd see like a transient apparition. It would come, go, be half there, half not. And there were reports, sightings of that all over the first time CERN was fired up. Come this September 2015, CERN is going to be rebooted, and it's going to be given double the power. Double the power. I see the symbol of Subud that I spoke about in video 2, it has some kind of homage to CERN. I see that the Sumerians spoke of it, the Bible spoke of this, the Mayan calendar, the tongue of Coincidental at the center. And by the way, that's why Michael Jordan stuck out his tongue, and that's why Miley Cyrus sticks out her tongue, is to pay homage to the serpent, Coincidental. I believe that Coincidental, the serpent of the Bible, it's some kind of ambassador of Lucifer, a theme, a paradigm upon itself. It's a reptilian thing, and it is what inspired the reptilian part of us, and it's when you go into looking to see if is there this, you know, breed of humans that are truly reptilian underneath the skin, you know, watch all of those videos with a grain of salt. What I feel that is being detected, but not being, the evidence is not being really grabbed at because the idea isn't complete. The idea is what the Bible speaks of, tears. There is this blood, there is this, and these things. Now I've said that, you know, bloodline should not be hearkened on, you know, that it defeats the purpose of defending mankind to like start attacking different kind of bloodlines. But I don't think that this, if we can find a subject of a quote-unquote tear, what in other cultures and throughout time have been called the archon, I think there is something to it. But I believe it's a very sparse. It's not something that's really prevalent, but it does exist, and it all comes from this reptilian serpent lying to us in the beginning. It all roots back to that. In UFO sightings, there have been sightings of reptilian creatures. I guess saurian, velociraptor-faced men. I don't doubt that, but what I will be tying all together here is that it can all be supported by the biblical construct. It all supports it. Project Clementine, secret space program, secret satanic space program, launch date rituals, all the Saturnalis key points, all of the shuttles being named after pagan gods and goddesses, the whole mess, the hexagon on Saturn. What is that? The hexagon on Saturn. What is that? Well, why not ask NASA? NASA is, the more you look at it, the more you'll realize that it's fake. In my research, when I looked into the byline, "We own the night," now on the other side of things, I can say, well, no, there's only one that owns the night, and that's God. I see this space exploration, it isn't an exercise in the betterment of the human race. Somewhere along the way, what was found out, and this is what I feel that this is their biggest hush. This is the thing that they could not bear to talk about this in public. Not even the best of men, I think would have a really hard time, you know, processing this. Point blank, aliens are demons. I implore everyone listening to look into the UFO deception. It's huge. I see things now in a new light. One of the good things that I learned, it's not grim at all. It's a bright point. Was that studies have been done, ironically, on how experiments react to scientists. And therefore, you can logically see that we do affect our environment. It affects us. Our environment is powerful, and that's why we've been inundated with dullness in our lives. The 9 to 5, that. What the internet in itself helped, for all of its evils, for all of its corruption, I see it as something that was kept from us for a long time. It got to us, and it has changed us. We need to be careful in our next steps. We need to be careful in the next changes, because the next changes, there is a fork in the road coming where this stream of the mark of the beast and what it supports is a change to you. It's a change to the human race. As with everything, Lucifer wants to reflect, imitate, mock, and make a destructive version of the twinkling of the eye. And this all has to do with cybrids, cloning, the genetic research, the cybernetics. It's bigger than you think, and it's more real than you think, and it is all devoted to transhumanism and eugenics. You need to research these ideas and understand what they are. Please research what Plato said. Research his words. Research his ideas. You will see what the powers that be have in mind for us. That is the way they look at reality, and it's a harsh, cold, soulless reality. Everything that I'm pointing out to you is in devotion to that. Science in itself, when you look at how these scientists come up with their theories, they just present an idea and then look for evidence to back it up. I mean, it's ignorant on one level, but on another level, there's really, I kind of understand that's really the only way we can go about things. We notice something, we start scrutinizing it, and that's what I did in my journey to God. Is I noticed all of these evil connotations, and they all pointed out the same thing, that this is all just one monster. But today I can see the good side and the bad side to what I said about the scientist and his experiment. If we mentally affect our surroundings to a degree, and we've come to an understanding of that, through that idea, that means that we can make our environment better, but we are being controlled and conditioned to do the exact opposite. And it is an agenda. It is all the same agenda. The destruction of God's. We were made in the image of God. And this is why we are hated. And this is why there is so much jealousy over us. That's why there is so much done to grab at our unique, spiritual, powerful selves. And the way movies work is it lulls you into this perception that your reality is not amazing. Watch this because your reality is not amazing. It's really that simple. When really our our realm of possibilities, when you look into the Bible and you think, oh, well, parting an ocean is crazy, living in the belly of a whale is crazy, understand that that has been programmed into you. It's not crazy. These things happen. All of the miracles in the Bible happened. What God said He did, He did. And I'm sorry if it feels like I'm, hammering here, but this is my point. This is what I've come to. All science is sorcery. It's repackaged. The words are different. What they call a sorcerer in the Bible, we call a neurologist today. We call, because they are dissecting God's creation and rejecting God while doing it. It is self-contradictory, and I see how it works. I see why it's deceptive based on how it's done, how science is done. It is just a form of petty sorcery compared to God's genius. All entertainment is just ill gospel. It's poison doctrine to lull you into ideas that are totally false. If you look into the quote-unquote hero, they always flip the roles in these blockbuster movies. The hero represents an agent of Lucifer, the Antichrist, that do what thou willst, and persevere, and fight the good fight. Is what you're supposed to absorb. And then when you look at the villain, this villain always represents a judgment. It represents something greater, and the idea is that they flip these roles. They put the attributes of the Antichrist into the hero, and the attributes of Yeshua, our Savior, into the villain of the movie. They do this all the time, like constantly. It's mockery, and it's insane. It's insane that they tell you, they've been telling you the truth. They've never lied to you in that way. God described our society to a T. He said that we would replace truth with myth, and that the delusions would impact. He knew it, and when you see outside the bubble, and you can see that it's all about that's what everything is. It is. I understand that this can be mind-blowing to you. I understand. My empathy is strong with you, Padawan. But I'm being serious. This is the reality. Our reality is so more amazing than what you've been shown and been led to a grasp of. Expect your mind to be blown. It should be. I speak to you in these videos, and I go through all these basically tips. Just look into this, look into that. I go through this to give you the support beams that I found. These are all of them. I am going to try and give you as much as I can. In this time where we have things called cybrids, these days much like that of Noah, it all has to do with that Nephilim thought and the Book of Enoch was taken away from us, and in it, God even allows him to. God thought so highly of Enoch. Enoch was God's favorite, and I mean, hey, that's okay. The way I see it is, God saw so much of himself and his brand of creativity, that mysterious creativity. He saw it so much in Enoch that he was like, I've got to meet this guy. He created him. But see, the free will that we expand on, it surprises him. And Enoch was a big surprise to God. So God even showed off to Enoch. He said, look at this. And what does it talk about? It talks about UFOs. It talks about alien ships. I mean, what Hollywood would have you call an alien ship was shown to Enoch in real time. In the real, you know, and it was from God himself. God had taken the Yeshua form to meet Enoch. And there's a whole thing that happens with Enoch that is really important for our times, where Enoch was asked by the fallen angels that were chained in Tartarus. And mind you, the Greeks talked about Tartarus as well. I think this is a real place, and I think this is something that, you know, it says that this thing is going to get opened up in these end times, and I don't know what we're going to be dealing with, but these fallen angels are, look at them as spiritual forces that have been chained for millennia, and they were told there is no forgiveness for you who have strode beside your Creator and still have defied him. You cannot walk with God and defy him. It's real. And God is all merciful. So he did not see fit to just simply destroy something that he created. He didn't see fit to just, you know, be gone with it. Free will was given to these fallen ones. They misused it. They gave us all kinds of ideas. Science, the creation of weaponry, even makeup. It goes as far as talking about how they gave us makeup and beautification of the face and jewels. These fallen angels, after they had desecrated man with their seed and created the Nephilim, they bore a judgment, you know, they are not judged yet. They bore a midterm judgment for those acts, and they were put in Tartarus. And it says that in the end times, in days that we see before us, that they'll be released. And I don't know how that's going to, I don't know if that's something we're going to see, or if they're long dead in their chains, and we're just going to see a gigantic explosion of violence from them being released. I don't know how it's going to work, but I do believe that that's going to happen. That's how you need to look at this. These principalities that Christ spoke of, they're real. And they exist and operate behind a veil. So you're not seeing them. You are seeing the evidence of them throughout, in science, politics, the entertainment industries. You're seeing evil growing and growing. That's that's exactly what it's doing, and it's interweaving. And there is a climatic point. There is going to be a point where this is going to end. God knows it. They know it. The ones that are trapped in Tartarus know it. The idea is that they know, and they're very scared of God. You have to keep that in mind. They are very scared of Christ, and for good reason. He can simply destroy them. You have to get past the point of understanding why God would not just outright destroy them. It has to do with mercy. It has to do with the process of the lesson, the grand lesson versus the grand deception. If we can learn to focus and see thine enemy for what he really is, then it is an awakening. And when you earn the eyes and ears that I use, it's a big responsibility. So I'm trying to help gather things together for you in these days, much like Noah. They love to use predictive programming and false media and flip the hero stuff, but there is a huge core idea that they're telling you in these movies, and that's that you're a human and you will need something else. And they never point out that could be God. It's something else. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's not of God, then it's of Lucifer. The Bible makes it clear. So by rooting for all these heroes and getting mixed up into this, this whole fake thing, this world that they've painted for you, by getting wrapped up into it, what you're doing is you're creating this. It's a set of motions that in the end we will see the instigators of. That's what I am preparing for, and that's what I'm pointing out, is that this false induced reality, it's not going to last. It's going to be taken out. Earlier I had brought up the Vatican's keeping of 2 secrets out of 7. They've given us 5, and there are 2 that we're not allowed to see according to them. I saw a reflection between that and the tablets of Thoth. And what you need to know about the tablets of Thoth is that they are made of a green jade-like mineral, but they don't know what it is. It is not of earthly origins. I find that, when that's incredible that they've said this, and it's like we weren't listening. This all ties into the original name of ancient Egypt, what we call ancient Egypt. They called it Chem, those that lived in it. And when you look at the word Chem, you see that this is rooted to alchemy. I've talked about the ley lines, a smudging. I brought up pyramids. Well, to finalize my ideas about the pyramids, to kind of give you an idea of what I think they are, and this goes back into everything I'm about to talk about too. I believe that the pyramids were some kind of energy source that they're all across the planet in this certain order. Those that visited them in 2012 don't know that they gave energy to these sacred sites. And in this thinking, when you look at how science meets quote-unquote magic, if you can wrap your head around that, then you can see that the word pyramid, which means fire within, I see how the Hollywood stuff has kind of pointed out these things to us. Just nods. And I believe there's a reality to that. I don't know how it worked, but I know that they formed some kind of grid on the planet. Now I see that grid as being almost like a force field against God. That's how, I think that's what it boiled down to. And Lucifer had built it. It's all Luciferian. In my deepest researches, the stuff that I return to time and time again as I look through, biblical connections and everything, the real reason why I started looking into the Bible was because of how it in the Sumerian tablets correspond. What they say, they called Adam the Adamu, and they were created in the E-den, Eden. It's so surreal how much it goes into this. And Enlil was a high-ranking winged officer to Enki, the creator god. And Enlil started an upheaval. And see, this is you have to really look at what happened. Enlil was thrown down to earth. He wasn't executed. And 200 of his kind that agreed with Enlil. If it sounds familiar, it's because it's the same story. They were all thrown to earth for the rebellion. Enlil said that he could do God's job better than him, and God showed him what saying that got him. And Enlil enslaved the human race when it came time to flood the earth, when it came time to release the deluge, because of the corruption of flesh, because of the rampant infection of sin. It said that mankind sinned continually. That means they didn't stop sinning. We're heading that way. Mankind is heading that direction again. But this time it's a total flip. It's a contrast, an imitation of God's master plan. At one end you had God's deluge, which was of water, a cleansing. On the other end you're going to have a deluge of fire that Lucifer is going to bring about. He's imitating God and he's flipped it. It's totally going the opposite direction. And it's a deluge of utter chaos and destruction, and it's going to be unclean. It's going to be everything that you can imagine times 1,000. If that can bring any concept of what I'm trying to say to mind. This is what we're being warned about. And I don't discount anything that the movies show me anymore. I see it all as a possibility of how Lucifer can express himself, and he may use it all in order to try and convince you that there is no God. That's his. He wants you to be convinced that God's not there and that he's God, and that is the root element in the Sumerian text. It is important to understand that Enlil was the one who relayed all the info. He took credit for telling Noah to pack his bags and make a boat. He took credit for it. That was God's act. God saw good in that man. Zeidra, Noah, whatever his name was. He saw goodness in that one man. And that's what happened. And Lil lied about it. And Lil's lied about everything. I don't know if that's Lucifer's true name. I'm not sure. You've got all kinds of names for him. Baal, Mephisto, there's all kinds of names. Beelzebub gets mixed up with this. If you look into things as deep as I have, you've seen that there are different ambassadors to Lucifer. It's not just one entity. It's not like, there were other fallen ones, and some of them have prominent names, and they're represented to you in your entertainment. You're given the Astaroth. You're given the versions of Azazel. You're given all kinds. You're given these things. The whole clown concept, the Joker character, I understand what he represents now. He represents an archetype in a biblical reality. That creature exists somewhere, and that's the way it behaves. And we're only catching a glimpse of it. And it's a very smudged glimpse at that. Let's talk about smudged glimpses and compare it to the stuff that I was talking about with the Sumerian quote-unquote legend. Something that you should keep in mind is that the Sumerians and Aztecs, they disappeared. I wonder, Egypt, a lot of people say, well, Egypt started out brilliant, and then it little by little became deteriorated, defunct. Well, that's how Lucifer's plans work. Every culture that you can look at, as far back to Sumeria, you'll find that Lucifer uses flatteries for a long time. Flatters you, cajoles you, lulls you into a false sense of comfort, and then he starts the intimidation. And that's where we are at, ladies and gentlemen. We are at the turning point between flatteries and intimidations. This is only the beginning of everything. As far back to what I was saying on ISIS, this is the beginning of it. You haven't seen anything yet. I don't know if CERN is going to blacken the skies. I don't know if turning Saturn to steel is an analogy for empowering Satan. These are my thoughts on it. I don't know if CERN is going to start breaking up the Earth in pieces. I don't know if it's going to happen this September. I don't know if it's going to happen 5 years from now. I don't know. All I know is that they are conditioning us into not thinking about these things. The one long agenda has been the ancient aliens agenda and the just believe that it's about aliens agenda. When I learned that Nibiru had a distinctive shape for its call sign, and I understood that Nibiru had the capability of halting the Earth's rotation as the Bible describes. When I took a look at what Nibiru represents, they like to tell you that it's the destroyer. If you look into this, a lot of people like to say it's the destroyer. Well, these are the same people that have everything confused with the Enki and Enlil names. There's been this terrible transpose of the names. It's almost as if people ignored the name Enlil altogether, and I don't know why. Enki is the creator god. There is no falter in the representation of what he is. Enki created mankind in the Sumerian pathos, and Enlil took credit for it. So what you have is you have these Masons, these Illuminati, that believe that lie. That transpose is exactly what has them fooled. They think that they are in fact talking to God. When you see a politician say God bless everyone or whatever, he, for all intents and purposes, the God that he is speaking of is a lowercase g. It is not Enki. It is not Aya. It is not I am. It is not the creator God. It is Enlil, the liar, the creator of scapegoats, the creator of murderers, is who they're calling God, the father of lies. We have to pray for these people. It's it's easily understood how these lies were sown in. I see them. I understand their power. They are great, great lies. I think there is a great lie in the churning, and it runs clear back to the War of the Worlds hoax. And it's this, I mean, I've seen where the Archons fit in. I see that, you know, you hear these stories about the Nazis being helped by aliens, and then you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of advanced being would help a Nazi? And then you see the descriptions of these creatures. They call them the tall whites. These were fallen angels. That's what they were. And tall whites, these beautiful men with blonde long hair and red long hair, and they're pale, and they're exactly what you hear about accounted for in Nephilim stuff as well. They fit into that. Then if you take a look at what I've looked at the story of Christ casting the legion into the pigs. This legion is all in one man, and he says, "We are legion, we are many," but he begs for mercy unto Christ, as in he's scared witless of Christ. Christ has mercy and casts him into pigs. It casts it into pigs. This one of many locust mind demon brood. And these pigs all run to the ocean. And I guess the pigs drown. And and what I'm seeing is that the grays that do resemble a unborn infant embryonic human in a way. They do resemble that. But I'm examining the grays more as the Raphian. They went from pigs to fish or something aquatic, and that's why they look so, you know, they live in deep conditions. So they've been molded into this, what we see as the grays with the big black eyes. There's all kinds of accounts of USOs. Look into USOs. And then key in the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle. Fit in Atlantis. Look into all of it. And understand Atlantis, it was a failed kingdom. They failed because of their defiance to the Creator. If Atlantis is a reality, if it was a reality, then the way I look at it, it was a culture that was beguiled by Lucifer into destroying itself. It's happened plenty of times, and it's going to happen here too. Here and in our lifetime. This society that we call ours, it isn't ours, it's theirs. None of this is ours. The backdrop, the whole reality that this all takes place in belongs only to God. And he uses Lucifer to prove the point that there is only one God. That is what this is going to end up being about. That's what it is about. Lucifer wants you to think that there's a fight to get caught up in. And you've been, all through your movie-going experience, all through your childhood, you've been taught to root for the underdog. Well, who's going to be the underdog in this last fight? Who is going to be, you know, basically the littlest of the underdogs of all thought and form? It will be Lucifer. Lucifer is the last underdog, and it's going to be shown brilliantly. Enki, Aya, I am, the Great Spirit. There is only one God. These are the names that I've become accustomed to calling him in my seeking him even further. But I understand those names, it doesn't match to his power. You can't name this power, not really.
I had to find a way to stop them trying to kill me.
You made a serious mistake. Not as serious as yours. I fear. Hey, let's not stand on ceremony here. Mr. Wayne. Peace has cost you your strength. Victory has defeated you. Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated. But we are initiated, aren't we, Bruce? Members of the League of Shadows. And you betrayed us.
Yes, you were excommunicated by a gang of psychopaths.
I am the League of Shadows. I am here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny. You fight like a younger man. There's nothing held back. It's admirable, but mistaken. You think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blight. The shadows betray you because they belong to me. I will show you where I have made my home whilst preparing to bring justice. Then I will break you. Your precious armory, gratefully accepted. We will need it. I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit? Oh, your body!
I was not so much interrupted, but intercepted by my father calling on the phone. He reminded me of something that I'm going to be showing. This is why the sky may turn black. This is why. This is the how of that, maybe. All in all, what I've gone through in the last 3 episodes and all through this one is that this induced reality that they have you conditioned into is very unstable, and they have along the way, in a great effort, programmed you to think of the Death Star instead of Nibiru. It is a way of thinking that they've put in you. Not even just one concept, but a whole grand scope of things. Nibiru, in my research, in what like I said, I returned to the Sumerian text over and over. I don't think that the truth has been forthwith about it. I keep my guard up on the subject, but the rudimentary things about it that compelled me to look at the Bible, and then further I even went into the tablets of Thoth. The reason why there's these hidden secrets that the Vatican keeps at the end, they're the last 2, and the reason why there are 2 unshared tablets of Thoth, that and the correlation between the Bible and the Sumerian text, it has me looking at Nibiru, which was under the custodianship of winged men. This is no mistake. These winged men, at some point, they will be aboard Nibiru, adjacent Nibiru, and they will ask, why do they gather against their creator in vain? This was foretold. This was all foretold. And that will come to pass. Everything that God wrote will come to pass. It will find its way. It has been designed into coming to fruition. We are seeing the residue. We are seeing more than that. We are seeing the metaphors. We are seeing the paradigms. They all point out that God was being honest about the times that we would live in. And taking into my thinking that Enlil was a liar, he is convinced mankind through such paganistic, twisted ways, the name Prometheus, that the light bearer, the forbidden fruit offering serpent, it does culminate into this idea that Lucifer desperately wants you to think of God as an alien, and he's not an alien. He is our creator. The word alien is simply a word, and it has no power over the truth that they are trying to bury. I see that Nibiru it fits the perimeters. A voice coming from it would go everywhere. But I do believe there's something to having the ears to hear. I believe that everything is perfectly orchestrated, and in order to be sensitive to hear the truth about Nibiru, you'll have to be open to it. And nothing God does is imperfect. A call to rapture will be, it is going to be something that you cannot miss. It will be inevitable, and it will be, the harvest will happen. It doesn't matter what darkness comes about the earth through the HARP program. Project Bluebeam is going to spread the grand deception to a new level. They're going to make you think that there are things in the skies that aren't in the skies. And the chemtrails are going to come into fruition. Everything that I speak of, it's all one creature. From that obscure thing about Morgellons to having to do with chemtrails, all the way to the UFO deception and the things that I've brought forth about Obama, 9/11, and everything that I set forth in the next episode, which is I'm going to be keying in on MK Ultra's snailing out of Project Paperclip, and how the Nazis, when you look at what happened with the Nazis, you have to realize that our times have always been biblical times, and the Nazis were destined to win because they are evil. And far too many people think the Nazis lost. They didn't lose. They transmitted. They transmutated. What we know of as the neocons, they're Nazis. That's all it is. It's just a morphing. These evils, they're gathering, culminating, processing, because God is also culminating and processing. And it is my contention that he is on a returning path. And the least that I'll say on it is that I believe that Nibiru needs to be discussed further. It needs to be re-examined. I see it as being a perfect vessel of rapture. It fits the T, as it were. It fits to it, to a T. And I think that all in all, the principalities that we see the affect of, Christ warned us of these things poignantly, directly, and that is because they're more real than the reality that we see before our hands and before our feet. The reality that Christ spoke about and spoke from and conquered, that reality is far greater than this one. And throughout time, our quote-unquote masters, those that have chained us away from the good things and into the ugly, these people are, it is inescapable, the judgment, the logical judgment that they face. It all makes sense to me. And if I'm right about Nibiru, if it's not a ploy of Lucifer by itself, and that's something that's why I say it needs to be discussed, is because it does fit the perimeters. But we still have to be careful. We have to examine these things, figure out how we feel about it, not just me, I'm talking about everyone. Everyone should take my words apart and see if I'm on to the path. This is what I'm doing. I found God. God found me. If all of these things that I speak on are even 5% on track, my end-all message is that when God does arrive, when Christ does walk this earth again, there will be no fight. There will be no great agonizing upheaval. It will be over with. At that point, there is no such thing as something that can withstand God's judgment and his ability to affect. There is nothing that stands up to him. And that is what we are ultimately going to be shown. And that's what this all is about. In the meantime, we are left to face the test. If we can accept these things, if we can accept this truth, we are embattled, and God allows Lucifer to toil his best, or his worst, however you want to look at it, to tempt us away from God. It's what's happened with these Illuminati. They've been tempted away. They've fallen for this whole idea. And you and I, we both have a chance to take a step back, see where that chief cornerstone is missing in the pyramid, and realize that there is a reason for there to be a cornerstone. Without the cornerstone, it all falls.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.